The hedgerows of Normandy were quiet that morning, too quiet. Mist clung to the fields like a second skin, rolling low across the grass, swallowing sound, swallowing movement, swallowing fear. For the German tank crews waiting beyond the tree line, this silence felt familiar. They had ruled these battlefields for years. Panthers, Tigers, machines built to dominate. Machines built to survive anything the Allies could throw at them. Or so they believed. But this Sherman was different. Inside, the crew worked with quiet precision. The loader slid a long slender shell into the breech, far longer than anything a normal Sherman could fire. The gunner steadied his aim, adjusting for distance, wind. In the faint shimmer of heat rising from the Panther's hull, the commander whispered a single word. Fire. The shot cracked like thunder, a streak of light tore across the hedgerow. The German commander barely had time to register the flash before the round slammed into the front of his Panther. The thickest armor on the tank, and punched straight through it. No ricochet. No deflection, just raw, unstoppable penetration. Inside the Panther, everything changed in an instant. The shell ripped through steel, through machinery, through men. A burst of flame erupted from the turret ring. Smoke poured from the hatches. The tank that had once been the terror of Europe now sat motionless, burning quietly in the morning mist. And that was the moment German crews realized something had changed. Something had arrived on the battlefield that wasn't supposed to exist. A Sherman that could kill a Panther frontally. A Sherman that could kill a Tiger at ranges they thought were safe. A Sherman armed with the British 17-pounder. The Allies called it the Firefly. The Germans called it something else. They called it the tank that turned their confidence into fear. The 17-pounder wasn't just another gun, it was a weapon designed out of desperation, and perfected out of necessity. British engineers knew they needed something powerful enough to pierce German armor, something that could level the playing field, something that could shatter the myth of German invincibility. So they built a gun that pushed the limits of what a tank could carry. A gun so long it barely fit inside the turret. A gun so powerful it needed special recoil systems just to keep the tank from tearing itself apart. A gun that fired rounds at such high velocity that German armor, once considered impenetrable, suddenly felt thin. But the brilliance of the Firefly wasn't just the gun, it was the deception. From a distance, it looked like any other Sherman, samey hull, samey turret shape, samey silhouette that German crews had grown used to destroying. But hidden inside that familiar shape was a weapon that could end them before they even knew they were in danger. German tank commanders learned quickly. They began scanning every Sherman for one detail, the long barrel. If they saw it, they fired immediately. If they didn't, they hesitated. Because hesitation meant death. The Firefly crews knew this. They used it. They let the Germans reveal themselves first. And when the moment came, the 17-pounder spoke. In the bocage country of Normandy, where every hedgerow was a fortress and every field a trap, the Firefly became a hunter. Its long-range accuracy allowed it to strike from positions the Germans thought were unreachable. Its penetration power allowed it to kill even the heaviest tanks with a single well-placed shot, and its psychological impact spread faster than its shells. German crews began reporting encounters where they fired first, and still died. They described Shermans that seemed to punch holes through their armor as if it were nothing. They warned each other. If you see a long-barreled Sherman, destroy it first. Some commanders even refused to advance, until they were certain no Fireflies were nearby. The British crews meanwhile, understood the weight of what they carried. They weren't just tankers. They were the answer to years of German dominance. They were the counter to the Tiger's roar. They were the weapon that could finally stand toe-to-toe with the best machines Germany had built. But the Firefly wasn't perfect. Its massive gun made the turret cramped and difficult to operate. Its ammunition was bulky and hard to store. Its silhouette, once disguised, became more recognizable as German crews learned what to look for, and its armor was still that of a Sherman, thin, vulnerable, unforgiving. Firefly crews lived with the knowledge that if they were spotted first, they would likely die. So they relied on cunning, on patience, on ambush tactics that turned the hedgerows into killing grounds. One Firefly crew in Normandy destroyed 3 Tigers in a single engagement, all before the German tanks could even return fire. Another crew knocked out a Panther at over 1,500 meters. A shot, so improbable that German officers refused to believe it at first. Stories like these spread quickly, and with each retelling, the legend of the 17-pounder grew. The gun itself was a masterpiece of engineering. Its high-velocity rounds could penetrate over 140 millimeters of armor at combat ranges, enough to punch through the front of a Panther or the side of a Tiger with ease. Its APD's ammunition, a new experimental type, could penetrate even more, though it was notoriously inaccurate. But when it hit like nothing else on the battlefield. German crews began to fear the Firefly not just for what it could do, but for what it represented. It meant the Allies were adapting. It meant the days of German armor superiority were ending. It meant the battlefield was changing, and not in their favor. As the war pushed deeper into France, then Belgium, then the Netherlands, the Firefly became a symbol of Allied momentum. It appeared in places the Germans didn't expect. It struck from angles they couldn't defend. It turned their strongest tanks into burning wrecks, and it shattered the myth that German armor was untouchable. By the time the Allies reached Germany itself, the Firefly had earned a reputation that few tanks in the war ever achieved. It wasn't the fastest. It wasn't the toughest. It wasn't the most advanced. But it was feared because it could kill anything the Germans put on the field, feared because it hid in plain sight, feared because it changed the rules. And in war, changing the rules is everything. The British 17-pounder didn't just pierce armor, it pierced confidence. It pierced morale. It pierced the belief that German engineering alone could win the war. The Firefly proved that innovation, adaptation, and determination could overcome even the most formidable machines. It proved that a Sherman, a tank once mocked for its weaknesses, could become a predator. It proved that fear could shift from one side to the other. And in the end, that shift helped shape the outcome of the war. The British 17-pounder shocked German tank crews not because it was perfect, but because it was unexpected. Because it was deadly. Because it was the weapon that turned the hunter into the hunted, and because, in the quiet fields of Normandy, it reminded the world that even the strongest armor can be broken by the right gun, in the right hands, at the right moment. But the story of the 17-pounder didn't end in Normandy. As the Allies pushed deeper into occupied Europe, the Firefly became something more than a tank destroyer. It became a message, a reminder that the balance of power had shifted, and the German armored corps could no longer rely on fear alone to control the battlefield. In the Netherlands, Fireflies used long flat fields to their advantage, striking German armor from distances that seemed impossible. Panthers that once advanced with confidence now crawled forward, terrified of exposing their sides. Tiger crews, once the kings of the battlefield, found themselves hunted by a tank they had dismissed as inferior. The psychological weight of that realization was heavier than any shell. By winter, German reports described entire units refusing to advance until reconnaissance confirmed no Fireflies were present. Some commanders ordered their tanks to fire at every Sherman they saw, wasting ammunition, revealing positions, and creating chaos. All because of one gun. One weapon that changed everything. And yet, the Firefly crews never saw themselves as heroes. They knew their armor was thin. They knew their silhouette was obvious once spotted. They knew a single hit could end them. But they also knew something else. Something that kept them fighting. Kept them alive. They knew that their gun, their training, and their resolve could stop the machines that had terrorized Europe for years. As the war neared its end, Fireflies rolled through shattered German towns, their barrels still blackened from battle. They passed the burned-out hulks of Tigers and Panthers, monuments to a fading era of German dominance. And in those final months, the 17-pounder proved one last truth, that innovation, courage, and the will to adapt can break even the strongest armor. And end even the darkest chapters of war. The British 17-pounder didn't just shock German tank crews. It reshaped the battlefield. It rewrote expectations, and it earned its place among the most feared weapons of the Second World War.